Live from the SABC's Auckland Park headquarters, welcome to this Thursday edition of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvogo. On the show tonight,
the ANC is not corrupt. There are certain people in the ANC who have participated in certain corrupt acts.
Pressure is piling up on President Cyril Ramaphosa. He is now facing two probes, one from Parliament and another from the Public Protector. Angry and frustrated South African Express employees say the state-owned airline is ready to take off again, but efforts to do so are being deliberately frustrated. And a new report casts the spotlight on indignities, neglect, and ill treatment suffered by certain sectors of society at public hospitals and clinics. All that and more in tonight's episode of The Watchdog, which starts now. A day after Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts wrote to President Cyril Ramaphosa asking him to explain himself, the Public Protector has announced that she too is going to institute a probe of her own. Public Protector spokesperson Opa Sakhalwe explains.
The Public Protector South Africa wishes to remind all concerned that in terms of the Executive Members Ethics Act, the Public Protector must investigate any alleged breach of the code on receipt of a complaint by the President, a member of the National Assembly, or a permanent delegate of the National Council of Provinces if the complaint is against a cabinet member or a deputy minister. The Executive Members Ethics Act further provides that such an investigation must be completed within 30 days.
President Ramaphosa is happy to account to any public institution, says his ANC office. And this is what his office told the SABC last night.
Any request for him to explain his conduct, he will respond positively to those kind of requests. We have always stated that the leakage has been designed to create a distortion, and what is missing in that leakage is the context. There's a context within which the president made those kind of statements. It is unfortunate that the meeting of the NEC had to be leaked in the manner that it has happened.
Well, one among many South Africans who have taken a keen interest in this matter is former Gauteng Premier, former COSATU General Secretary, and former Member of Parliament, Mbazima Shilowa. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm keen to know what, you wrote a piece yesterday. Before, I must point out, the Public Protector announced this morning that she too is going to institute a probe. I'm keen to know what made you, put pen to paper.
Thanks, Vuyo, and good evening. No, I just felt that it was important that in the same way that we call on all leaders to account that even with President Ramaphosa, that we make the call very clear that the motive of those who have raised the issue in Parliament should not matter. What should matter is that because he has now been asked to appear before Parliament, for him to go there and to tell, one, what is it that he was speaking about? Secondly, to an extent that indeed resources may have been used for party political issues, when did he become aware? What is he aware? What is he done about it? What is he planning to do about it? And obviously it will be up to SCOPA and Parliament to decide to what extent he has been truthful, and if he has been truthful, for them to then move forward and then deal with the issues. The only thing I didn't want to focus on is to say, well, the MP who reported him have got an axe to grind. That may well be so, but, you know, courts have even ruled before in matters, including the one around the former President Jacob Zuma, that motives should not matter. What should matter is what is it that one need to be able to answer for. So that's why I thought, well, let me put pen to paper so that one doesn't just get second-guessed what their views are.
Let me add a second aspect to your very last point, that it shouldn't matter, you know, what the motive of the person who reported this and who asked for a probe was. A second point that people are supportive of the president are also raising is, which Besani, who is the head of the presidency in the ANC, also touched on, is that is the fact that this was leaked. Should that matter as well?
Well, obviously it matters for the ANC. For us, it doesn't matter. I mean, many of the things that we are dealing with as a country, including the Gupta leaks, all of these things were leaked. Some were leaked for ulterior motives. Others were leaked because people felt something needed to be done. So, sure, from an ANC point of view, they need to sit down and say what happened, why was it done. But as a country, we shouldn't be interested in the ANC's internal affairs. We shouldn't try to take sides in the ANC internal affairs unless people are ANC members and have reason to do so. But for us as a public, our interest must be, this is our president. He's sworn allegiance to the Constitution. He came on the basis that he will ensure that everything runs smoothly. We want to take him at his word.
And it is for those reasons, in fact, that people have been saying over the past a few days that, especially after watching in particular the performance of ANC MPs who are in the committee led by the new ANC whip in that committee, people seem to be of the view that what we're going to see next is the ANC throwing its lot behind its president, whatever that it's going to take.
You know, there's a Xitsonga saying here that says, meaning often if you're holding on to something by the hand, you're more likely to get rid of it, but behavior is very difficult to get rid of. So I would not be surprised, but I think, again, it will simply show that they have not learned from the Nkandla debacle. They can exonerate the president by him coming clean. And in that way, the issue, you know, will become dead rubber. But I think if all they do is to use their power to exonerate him, when in fact the facts may be speaking differently, it's going to be a problem. I mean, Vuyo, this matter should really be simple. I don't think in the clip, at least from what I've heard, the president is being accused of having used state money for his campaign. It is said that he had said that he knows or has been told that there are people who have used the state resources, that even though that may be so, he's taken a view those things need not be followed up. He'd rather become the fall guy. We want to know that may be the case. Did he hear it? Was he just talking pork? And is it true? And if it is true, as the president of the country, what has he done about it? That's really all we do. And if for instance, he was just pulling the leg of his colleagues, he will say so. It is them who will have to deal with him, not ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you, I don't know, in fact, if you watched the meeting where, the Scopa meeting where the decision was taken to, was eventually taken to write to the president. Just your observations your takeaways from the conversations you saw and heard there that went on before that decision to write to him was taken, especially, you know, the performance or statements that were made by ANC MPs?
I think that it seems that their starting point is simply to say, can we shield the president at all costs? In fact, that meeting should not have taken long. All they would have had was, this is what Member of Parliament Mervyn Dex is asking for. These are his reasoning. Does the law allow them to summon the president? Yes. Do they need to summon him? No, they don't need to, because he has not been asked and refused. Let's ask him the questions. Let him explain himself. And if the explanation is satisfactory, that's the end of the matter. If it is not, we will then call him so that we can be able to talk to him. But it would appear that ANC members went there to try and respond to Mervyn Dex rather than to respond to the issues that are on the table. And from where I sit, the issues really shouldn't be a big problem. They'll become a bigger problem depending on what people do. You know, one of the most known matters internationally, you know, about the American president who had to later leave just before impeachment, was not so much what he had done, was the cover-up that he went to deal with those. And I think that Nkandla should tell us a lesson. Don't try to cover up. Come clean as Parliament, deal with the issues. Some may be political, it may even be embarrassing, but deal with them. It is easy to move on thereafter. And of course, if funds have been used, those must be recovered, and the people who were involved with it must be charged if anything criminal took place.
We obviously don't know how he is going to respond. He has received the letter and is prepared to respond, but we don't know what his attitude is going to be towards the public protector probe. But the public protector has very specific powers. I don't think there's a way of escaping that one. But here's something that has stuck with me over the past couple of weeks. It's the answer he gave to the SABC's a political editor, Mzwandi Lembeje, 2 weeks ago, on the day the ANC was celebrating its 110th birthday. I wanted to take a listen.
Okay.
You may have seen an audio leak which came from one of the NEC meetings where you were basically talking about issues relating to corruption, basically saying, you know what, you don't want any other people to be like followed, so it's fine whatever they've done to you. So is this an admission from the part of the president of the ANC that he knows that there is corruption in his party?
Well, not so much in the party. There are certain people, let me make it clear, because people make the linkage. They say the ANC is corrupt. The ANC is not corrupt. There are certain people in the ANC who have participated in certain corrupt acts. And yes, there is a perception out there that the ANC is corrupt, but we must correct that and say, no, it is not the ANC that's corrupt. Certain people have done certain corrupt things. So, yes, there may well be. I mean, I don't have all the information. I don't have, but it is all these stories that go around that there are people who have participated in corruption.
I don't know how you would have handled that question if you were still a politician. I mean, I mean, you know that they've, I mean, for so long now, there's been this leaked a voice note that there's been doing the rounds. By now, I would have thought that you at least have some kind of an answer, even if it's not as definitive, that you would, you know, come up with, and at least, and not to, you know, not even attempt to answer the question.
Well, it depends. You see, if you're straddling two paths or trying to ride two horses at the same time, it's always going to be difficult. The president is trying, on the one hand, to pacify ANC members because, you know, he needs to be seen to be unifying the ANC, not be seen to be fighting everybody, not to be fighting unnecessary battles. But he also knows that South Africans are against corruption in our country. They know that there are people in the ANC, and from where they sit, it is the ANC that is rotten to the core. So he's trying to speak to those people as well. And I would have thought that, you know, it's an answer he would long have prepared to be able to say, well, yes, it is true, because he has said so himself. He's written on a public letter, even before he went to the Zondo Commission, where he said, well, the ANC may not be in the dock, it may be certain people, but from where he sits, it is also accused number one. So it is something that he knows. And I think he's got to decide, does he want to fight corruption, or does he want to simply protect certain people in the ANC for the unity of the ANC? Is going to be a hard ask, especially with 2024 coming, because I think parties will also try to act political. We also, with their own December Congress coming, his own Congress will try and act political. But he must stay true to what he has said to South Africans. He has said to them, I will fight corruption at all costs, even if it is inside my organization. And that's what we must hold him to.
Now, a wounded public protector who needs every and any victory she can get right now on the back of the court cases, one of which, I mean, a ruling came out only yesterday. Now, that kind of a person is going to go for a kill. I mean, she's not going to be kind to him at all. And the chances of him getting away with what he's able to get away with in interviews are very slim, if they exist at all. Just your thoughts.
Well, I think it also depends, what is it that he knew? What is it that he may have done about that particular notion? I don't want to get involved in terms of the PP, because, you know, sometimes we tend to just, you know, speak about her even without having a particular context. Even though from where I sit, I would have said that because the Parliament have already started a particular process, and they've also said they are aware that she has been approached, they are aware that the AG have been approached, that they were going to seek collaboration rather than duplication, she would have said to them, look, either you stop your processes, let me run with this because it's to do with the ethics, or she would have said, look, to an extent that it deals with the resources that may have been utilized, let me deal with this matter, and at the end of it, I'll deal with it. And to an extent that there may be a 30-day period from when it has been reported, I'm sure, you know, ways could be found to deal with that particular issue. Of course, you know, to an extent that she thinks he's wounded, she'll go for a kill. But, you know, I love Pan's Vuyo, and one of it is a Sesotho one that says, "Tauta toka sibuka, this shitwakinari itloka," meaning, you know, a wounded buffalo can run away from lions. unless they themselves are hunting together.
Of buffaloes and lions, that's where we're going to leave it. Thanks very much for your time this evening, Mbazi Mashilo, who's the former premier of the province of Gauteng, but is also a former general secretary of the Congress of South African Trade Unions and ally of the ANC. He wrote a piece yesterday saying that, well, the president should indeed come clean about what he knew, what happened, what he did, about whatever information may have come before him. We'll see whether the president does indeed accede to that call, which is being made not only by Mr. Mbazi Mashilo, but by many, many South Africans. To this story now. Angry and frustrated South African Express employees say the state-owned airline is in fact ready to take off again. But the efforts are being hampered. They are being thwarted by people who may just have vested interest, while the workers or the people who worked for that organization continue to starve, continue to suffer. That's the story we are talking about in a moment on the other side of this. Welcome back. This is the Watchdog. Angry and frustrated South African Express employees say the state-owned airline is in fact ready to take off again, but efforts to do so are being thwarted by the people who are responsible for managing that process. Well, we've got Zazi Sibanyoni Mugambi, who is from the Cabin Association, but we also have from South African Express, Thabisile Skakana. Good evening, ladies. Thanks very much for your time this evening. Before we get to the arguments that you are making as to why you think there are people who are doing this deliberately and who are benefiting handsomely from the current state of affairs, while employees are starving and jobless. I'm going to ask you, Zazi, just to very briefly, just from the conversations you've been having with employees of South African Express, how would you describe, how they are feeling, many of them right now, and perhaps even anecdotally some of the things that they've said to you and your colleagues?
Well, good evening. Thanks for having us. It's been a disastrous, painful 4 years of agony for the employees of SA Express. These employees literally have been left out to fend for themselves. Many have lost everything. And I'm not talking about houses and cars. I'm talking about everything. They've had to move to the back rooms of their families' houses. They've had to take their kids out of school. I mean, the suffering is just immeasurable. And every day you hear, is there money coming? Our UIF wasn't paid completely. Is there any package? Is the DPE going to give us anything? And these are answers that we have received no response to, from the people that were holding Express as an SOE and have failed it through years of corruption. And once again, Vuyo, the people paying the highest price are the employees, the workers that had nothing to do with the corruption and the looting. And, it's just gone on and people, and as we understand, even post the liquidation process, these employees are not going to receive a cent. I mean, how do people even live with themselves? It's dire. It's a sad situation. And, as SACA and FlySax SA, we thought to ourselves, we cannot just sit back and allow, this airline to just crumble and fall. We have to at least try and salvage it in order for them to have a prospective future. And it's proved such a difficult task. And we don't understand why. Who stands to benefit by this airline not continuing its journey with the employees at the helm, So it's frustrating. It's frustrating to the people who have just resigned themselves to their fate. And this is why we are fighting so hard for this deal to be finalized. There's an offer on the table. Stop ignoring this offer, finalize it, get it approved by the Department of Public Enterprise, and let's get on with creating employment for the over 600 employees that have been left destitute by the actions of the government. So that's what we're calling for.
Thabisile, from your vantage point, what have you seen and what have you heard from South African Express employees about how they are feeling right now and what's happening in their lives?
Good afternoon, Vuyo, and thank you for having us. It has been a dreadful 4 years. Like Zazi has mentioned earlier, we've lost some of our ex-colleagues through illnesses that were brought upon by the stress that we're left with. And it's been very difficult. And also being in the position that I'm at now, trying to salvage what is left of SA Express, that has also been a very, very frustrating process. In terms of the ex-colleagues, it's also been difficult to even get employment. As you would know, that the aviation industry was badly affected. And most importantly, it's the workers that have really sacrificed and committed and served the airline for more than 25 years to walk away with absolutely nothing. It was so bad that even with the past SARS tax return season, some of our employees could not even get much out of that process as well, because as you would know, with the previous with our previous employer, that our taxes were not paid for like 2 months. So there was issues with that as well. So the past 4 years have been very dreadful and very, very stressful. Personally, also, as I had mentioned, it has definitely affected me as well. Going through this process, it really drained me. At some point, I went into depression of the things that I was going through, because we keep knocking at these doors and nobody seems to want to even touch SA Express with a broomstick. You try to speak to any of the ministers and you try to reach out. We've written letters, we've written to the presidency, but we don't get any response. The best that they could do is send us a response that the airline was under the Department of Enterprise. And when you go to the Department of Enterprise, they'll let you know that you must go back to the liquidators. We've been trying to get a tangible feedback from the liquidators, but we're not getting anything. And all we are saying is give us a chance to salvage what is left of SA Express, to give hope for the future for the SA Express employees.
Take us very briefly, Zazi, through the sort of the main features, if I call it that, of the offer that is on the table, and why you believe it offers a solution that needs to be attended to right now.
Well, firstly, I think it's the only offer on the table, quite frankly. I think we went through the first round where there were many players and FlySax was identified, and I'm sure for the fact that they're employees and they're the rightful people to take this forward. And now there's been an offer that's been put based on the requirements of the liquidators. The amount I can't quite articulate at this present moment. 50% was paid in November, and a further 50% was paid in December. And the reason why was because we have a lot of suspicions as to what is happening behind the scenes here. And, this sort of information can sort of hinder our moving forward. But we have fully committed the prerequisite amount, thanks to global impact investment that has come to the party to try and assist. And right now we are not getting a response. We've been told that by the liquidator that it still has to go to the Department of Public Enterprise. And then we're just wondering what is happening, because every day that goes past, we're at risk of losing the routes, and without routes, an airline is in big trouble. The AOC of Expresses is lying dormant as we speak. The air service license is on the verge of being suspended. So pretty soon there'll be nothing to rescue. So this is why this last-ditch attempt, in order to get someone to make a call. We have an offer on the table. We've not been told of any other offer. And you'd recall there's a time that someone put an offer of R1. So we are buying into a future for the employees. And I think this funding investment company that's come through sees the vision, and there's nothing that should be delaying. And the liquidator, quite frankly, is derelicting his duties. He's not living up to the prescripts of the Companies Act, and is dragging this and continuing to collect fees at the expense of this airline taking over. So we are ready to go. We've not been told of any other bidder. We have met all the requirements as per the liquidator, and there's no more time for us to salvage. It's now or never. This deal needs to go through, or else that's the end for SA Express, and it's the end for those employees that have not received a cent. And it's the end for any possible employment in this new entity that FlySax wants to take up and rescue. And Vuyo, you would appreciate, as a union, our first point of call is not privatize. But I mean, we've been failed so dismally that we have to resort to choosing employees first. And we are grateful for investment partners like Global that are backing us up, because the aviation industry is not popular. So we've done everything possible. The only people standing in our way right now are the liquidators and a final approval from the DPE. And that's all we ask for.
Tabisile, I mean, the liquidators seem to believe that there may just be a better offer out there. It may not be on the table, but it could just come. And that's the reason they have put a return date for a liquidation application to the 4th of July.
I don't think so. I share the same sentiments with Zazi, that there's no better offer on the table for SA Express. If there was, then I think they would have come forward by now. We've started this process. It's been a year now, and I'd like to believe that we are the only bidders that are on the table that have fully complied with all the requirements, and we've even paid in the full amount that we had proposed to the liquidators, and we have shown commitment that we are ready to take this airline off, and as well as our partners, Global Impact Investments, have reached out and said that we are ready to take the airline back to the skies. The only thing that's outstanding is for the liquidators to give us approval, and for the Department of Enterprise as well to give approval to the liquidators to give us a go-ahead. I definitely do not think there's any other bidder that's on the table. Like Zazi had mentioned earlier, there were bidders that had put in a R1. That should tell you that people do not see any value in SA Express. We still believe in the brand. We still believe that there is hope for this airline to take off under new leadership and new management and outside of the government.
Zazi, why is it, or do you guys find it difficult to believe the liquidator or trust their bona fides? Is there something, what do they stand to benefit from, whether it's a prolonged a process or not accepting the only deal that makes sense to you?
Yes, I mean, as SACA, we've had a hard time just basically engaging with the liquidator. I think the liquidator has been very standoffish towards us, and our only interest was to follow the process and make input where we could. Vuyo, the liquidator continues to draw fees. So it's very nice for him to drag this out. I mean, the last time we sort of got hold of him, they were talking about the court case, which was a good court case that NUMSA had launched in order to deal with SOEs and this pandemic, this plague that is taken over the SOEs and how they're just crumbling and falling. But that was not an excuse to finalize, not to finalize the deal of SA Express. So the fees are obviously comfortable. We've had experience with SAA where the fees are just phenomenal for this sort of work. And furthermore, we have to question but
the Constitutional Court said it could not hear the union's application because the matter is not within its jurisdiction or direct mandate.
Exactly. And that's what happened. And there's another further extension that was granted for now this 3 months. So it suits the liquidator to keep on making excuses not to finalize. So the Constitutional Court application had nothing to do with finalizing this particular transaction because that has been handled within the liquidation process. So these to us are just stalling tactics, using that. And any other excuse that you're going to give should not hinder you from finalizing this application, awarding the bill, and allowing this airline to take off. And we question the intentions. We question who wants to take over the routes that Express has, because these are routes that have been very wanted within the market. And I mean, if we go another day, another week, another month, there's no more routes, and competitors can then sweep in and take them. So we question that. But we are calling on him to do the right thing and his fiduciary duties in this case.
Thabisile, I mean, you did say earlier that you've done everything possible, and whether it's the liquidators, whether it's the government, no one seems to be prepared to listen. Is there anything that you can still do to influence this process, or are you entirely at the mercy of the liquidators and the government?
Unfortunately, we are entirely in the mercy of the liquidators. They are the ones that are handling the process. Remember that the liquidator went, when the airline was put under provisional liquidation, the liquidators went to court and asked to be granted further rights to be also as business rescue practitioners. So they're wearing two hats. So we are definitely at their mercy. They were given a go-ahead to be able to get bidders and to get potential investors for SA Express, as well as run the process of liquidation. So we are definitely at their mercy. And when we knock at the Department of Enterprises doors, unfortunately, they send us back to the liquidators. They say that they can only get feedback and go ahead and proposal to be put on their table by the liquidators. So we are entirely on the liquidators' mercy, unfortunately.
Well, that's where we're going to leave this conversation for tonight. All we can say is best of luck to you. But to South Africans, do spare a thought for those South African Express workers who for years now have been left stranded without salaries, with a great deal of uncertainty about what's going to happen next, and no one prepared really to even listen to them. Well, up next, we're talking about a study that has just come out, and that study shows how sections of the population are finding it difficult to get the attention, to get help at public health institutions like your hospitals and clinics. That conversation coming up in a moment. To this now, a new report casts the spotlight on indignities, neglect and ill treatment suffered by certain sectors of society at public hospitals and clinics. Now, this follows a report that whose results were announced today about what has been happening in public hospitals and clinics where people aren't, or say they aren't getting the kind of attention that they deserve. To help us, to enlighten us on this piece of work and what has been happening, and hopefully what can be done to really, because no one should be turned away, no one should be ill-treated at a public health institution because someone is prejudiced or don't like how those people live. To help us, to take us through this research is Kensani Mavasa as well as Ndivuo Rambao. Kensani, good evening. Thanks very much for joining us. If I may start with, give us a background, if you will, to this research, why it was undertaken. Okay.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having us as Richidze. So just as a background, Richidze is a community-led monitoring project where we monitor over 400 facilities across South Africa in 8 provinces. So we late last year basically went on a data collection drive where we wanted to understand the experiences of key populations when it comes to accessing healthcare in public health facilities across the country. Needless to say, we did go out, we collected the data amongst 5,979 key populations, and this included men who have sex with men, people who use drugs, sex workers, as well as trans people. The main key is, or the main reason for collecting this data was that we have qualitative data which tells us that key populations face a lot of stigma and discrimination when they do go to facilities in order to access healthcare services. And we felt that we really need to dig deeper into those issues in order for all KPs to access a fair and equal healthcare services and facilities, essentially.
Just for clarity, before we proceed, when you say key populations, or KPs, as you abbreviate them, you're talking about men having sex with men, you're talking about sex workers and trans people. Is it only, or is there more to it than that?
We also in Richidze include or work with people who use drugs as well. So these are the 4 key KP groups that we deal with specifically within the project. Okay.
And what exactly do you do with them, with these KPs?
So as Richidze, we have a qualitative key population wing, where we collect qualitative data from key populations in order to understand their experiences, their challenges in accessing healthcare at facilities. So in this data collection drive, we essentially worked with key population monitors. So we worked with key populations in collecting this data. So across the country, we worked with about 50 key population monitors who are key populations or who fall under key pops themselves, so that it's for us, by us kind of approach.
Okay, and not because the state doesn't sort of do the kind of research you've had to do, or does very little. What's the reason why you feel that you have to do this kind of research?
So as the PLHIV sector, we felt that we really need to do this work because we know that KPs or key populations are vulnerable to being infected by HIV. And essentially this, in a way, can hinder us reaching our 95 targets. So in getting key populations accessing better healthcare services, especially in getting key populations not to disengage from care, for example, if they are on HIV treatment, having the being able to just walk into a facility and be able to get an STI test screening or be able to be comfortable to go to the facility in order to access treatment, it goes a very big way in us achieving those targets.
Now, unfriendly, openly hostile, especially abusive. Only some of the words respondents to the survey used to describe their experiences at the hands of supposed professionals within the public sector.
Essentially, that was one of the key themes that we found in the data as well as in the report. So facility staff attitudes, by and large, revealed that, public health facilities were less friendly towards key populations compared to drop-in centers and mobile clinics. So in most instances, key populations also have options to visit a drop-in center or a mobile clinic. However, we found that amongst the key populations that we spoke to, a high majority or high proportion didn't know about drop-in centers or how to access drop-in centers.
Sometimes people are chased away from facilities and they experienced, privacy violations. There's also, the treatment where people are being driven away from using clinics. I mean, that shouldn't happen in public institutions.
So we, as Richidze, have a few recommendations that we have presented in our report, and some of these recommendations basically include that there should be reports of poor staff attitude or privacy violations or verbal or physical abuse or harassment, and it should be investigated by the Department of Health, and disciplinary action should be taken where possible. And true, we are having key pops who are indicating that they have been turned away from the facility. So, for example, in the highest reports of key populations being refused services were found in Limpopo across KP groups, and a massive 38% of people using drugs in Limpopo indicated that they were turned away from the facility. They were refused access. They weren't helped when they needed the help that they needed.
Well, let's bring in Kensani, who has just joined us on the line, who couldn't get, who can't get through via our Zoom line. Kensani, just what you make of this as both a partner but also as an organization that has been taking up these issues for years now. What do you make of what this study has thrown up?
Thank you for having me. This study actually showed up the community members' experiences, more especially the key populations. Even though these are not new experiences or new things that the key populations have been experiencing over the years. So basically, all across the provinces, the challenges are similarly, even though they differ according to the key populations. And this is just some evidence that was brought, and also life experiences that have been raised with the Department of Health. That these are the key things that they have to look upon when addressing challenges when it comes to the challenges that people are facing at the health facilities. So this was just to confirm most of the things that have been raised all the years, and what the community has been saying. You have to listen to us. These are the things that we have to look at. And when we say the public health facilities are facing the crisis, these are the kind of things that we want you to look at. And we need to see the changes, and we need to see the services go to the people, and people need to get the services they want.
Now, your organization, has a history of, being engaged in very big fights. You have won landmark cases, and perhaps unwittingly, or in more ways than one, you are the hope of many of us in really taking up the cudgels and fighting these kinds of things. What are your thoughts about what we need to do, to put an end to this?
Actually, there are a lot of recommendations that have been made, and there will be meetings that will follow weekly, also bringing the partners that are supposed to also assist in making the changes. Because there's been a lot of maybe long time where there's been issues that have been raised, and you find that there are things that have been brought on and meetings on board to say these are the things that we want to see changing, but the things are not being changed. So basically, there are changes and there are actions that we want to see happening, and there will be meetings that will be happening in the next month. Of which it's not only the organization alone, but also sectors and the partners and everybody that on power can make sure that the real changes are happening, including also the Global Fund, because they have already made the commitment in the meeting that happened today. So all those partners and all the commitments that they've made, we are going to ensure that you are being held accountable, to ensure that there are changes in the public health facilities, and also that it serves the poor.
Okay. Final thoughts from you, Ndivhu, about what needs to be done, or the next steps that I suppose all of us, need to look into if we're to end this.
So essentially, we are saying that services need to be made available for all key populations. Sex workers should be able to walk into a facility and get STI screening that is, sex worker friendly, be able to take condoms in order to protect themselves as they conduct their daily work. Also for transgender people, there is a need to really push towards hormone therapy and gender affirming care in our facilities as well. And also with our people who use drugs who are in need of, unused syringes in facilities. So our facilities just need to be more friendly, more warm, and more open to our KPs, including men who have sex with men. And this just starts the treatment, like treatment from the gate. Essentially, it needs to start there. Like sensitization needs to be implemented for all staff members in the facility, so that we understand how to work together with KPs.
Ndivhu Rambao from Richidze and Kensani Mavasa from the TAC on the back of a new report that casts the spotlight on indignities, neglect and ill-treatment suffered by certain sectors of society at the hands of officials and supposed professionals at public hospitals and clinics. They are unfriendly, they are openly hostile, they are abusive. Some of them turn people away from hospitals altogether. Something very shameful. It shouldn't be happening in our country. Well, hopefully someone is going to do something about it. And that's our show for this evening. Thank you for watching, and do join us again tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. sharp. Have a good night.